Penguins are black and white, and mostly black on the head. So why does the word penguin almost certainly come from the Welsh words pen gwyn, meaning white head? Somewhere between the coast of Wales, a vanished seabird, and the icy waters of the South Atlantic, a name got seriously misapplied, and the story of how that happened is stranger than you might expect. To understand this mix-up, we need to go back to the age of European exploration, roughly the late 1400s and early 1500s. British and Welsh sailors were pushing further and further into unfamiliar waters, charting coastlines, naming things as they went. At the same time, the Welsh language was very much alive in the vocabulary of these crews. Wales had a strong maritime tradition, and Welsh words were not exotic to the sailors using them. Pen, meaning head or headland, and gwyn, meaning white or blessed, were common practical words. In the North Atlantic, there was a bird that dominated these waters, large, flightless, with a very distinctive white patch on its head. Sailors had a name for it, a Welsh name, and that name would survive long after the bird itself did not. The bird at the center of this story is the great auk, known scientifically as Pinguinus impennis. It was a large, flightless seabird that lived across the North Atlantic from Canada to Iceland, the British Isles, and beyond. It could not fly. It was an excellent swimmer, and, crucially, it had a striking white patch between its bill and its eye. Welsh and Breton sailors working these waters, likely in the early to mid-1500s, had a ready name for it: pen gwyn. White head. The name fit perfectly. The bird had a white head marking, lived on rocky outcroppings called headlands, and the word pen even doubled as a term for a promontory or point of land. It was practical naming at its most direct. The earliest written records place the word around 1578, when the English navigator Sir Martin Frobisher led his third voyage into the Canadian Arctic in search of the Northwest Passage. His crew encountered large flightless birds on an island near Newfoundland, almost certainly great auks, and recorded them using a version of the word we now recognize. The log descriptions from that expedition refer to birds the sailors called penguins, noted for being easy to catch and useful as food. Around the same period, another documented case comes from the Welsh navigator and privateer John Callis, whose expeditions along the Atlantic coast brought him into contact with the same bird populations. Welsh-speaking crew members would have found pen gwyn as natural a label as any. By the time English language records were standardizing the spelling to penguin, the Welsh roots were already becoming obscured. Then, something important happened. European sailors began rounding the Cape of Good Hope and pushing into the South Atlantic and eventually to Antarctica. And there they found birds that looked, in their general shape and flightless habits, remarkably similar to the great auks they knew from home. Black and white. Upright, awkward on land, brilliant in the water. They called them penguins. The name transferred. But these new birds were not great auks. They were a completely different family, and they did not have white heads. The name pen gwyn, white head, had jumped from one bird to an entirely different creature on the other side of the planet. The earliest English records using penguin to refer to the southern birds appear around 1600, and by that point the association with the Welsh origin was already fading from common awareness. Here is where the common false belief tends to take root. Many people assume that penguin is simply a sailor's nonsense word, or that it comes from Latin pinguis, meaning fat, a reference to the bird's plump bodies. It sounds plausible. Penguins are famously round, and the spelling looks vaguely Latinate. But the evidence does not support it. The pinguis theory lacks documented historical backing in the navigational records where the word first appears. What the records do show is a consistent use of the word by crews with Welsh and Breton connections, applied first to a bird with a genuinely white head in the North Atlantic, well before anyone was describing Antarctic wildlife. The word penguin is essentially a linguistic orphan. It was separated from its original referent, the great auk, which went extinct in 1844 when the last known pair was killed on the island of Eldey off the coast of Iceland. The name survived. The bird it described did not. The Welsh connection to penguin is not entirely lost. In Wales today, the word for penguin in modern Welsh is penguin, a direct borrowing back from English, but pen gwyn as a phrase is still immediately understood by Welsh speakers as white head. Place names across Wales preserve the same roots. Penzance in Cornwall comes from a related Celtic form meaning holy headland, and dozens of Welsh villages and landmarks use pen as a prefix denoting a head or point of land. The word gwyn also survives robustly. It is a common Welsh given name, appearing in Gwyn, Gwynedd, and Gwynedd, the name of a region in northwest Wales. Every time someone named Gwynedd walks into a room, they are carrying a word that once described the head markings of a now extinct Atlantic seabird. The Old English root behind the white part of this story is huit, meaning bright, radiant, clear. It traces back through Proto-Germanic huit and further into the Proto-Indo-European root quait, quait, meaning white or to shine. That same ancient root gives us the modern English word white, which from its earliest uses around the time of Old English texts carried the sense of full luminosity, not merely the absence of color, but an active brightness. That sense of shining or radiance connects to a surprisingly wide family of words. The name Blanche, common in French and English, means the same thing from a different branch. Candid and candle come from the Latin candidus, also meaning shining white, from a parallel Indo-European path. Even the word candidate comes from this family. Roman candidates for office wore white togas, toga candida, to signal their purity and openness. Welsh gwyn sits in this same extended family, connected to the brightness and luminosity that early languages encoded into whiteness. It is not just a color descriptor. It carries associations of holiness, clarity, and good fortune, which is why gwyn also means blessed in Welsh. The great auk did not just have a white patch on its head. To Welsh-speaking sailors, naming it Pen Gwyn may have carried a faint resonance of the sacred or the auspicious, a bright-headed creature on the bright open sea. And now that bird is gone. Its name migrated south, attached itself to an entirely different animal, and became one of the most recognized words in the natural world. 250 million search results for a bird that has never had a white head, carrying a name that perfectly described a bird that no one alive has ever seen. If this kind of linguistic detective work is your thing, subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss the next video. We are looking at a word so ordinary that most people have never questioned it, and its origins are going to completely reframe how you think about the thing it describes.